It's a really strange phenomenon when you stop and actually think about it. I mean, have you ever found yourself, like, tearing up at a movie? Your heart is genuinely aching for a character, feeling real grief or joy, and then you suddenly remember you are literally just looking at a cluster of pencil lines or a grid of colored pixels shifting around on a screen.
Yeah, it's wild.
It is completely absurd that we can care so deeply about something that isn't actually alive. It's almost like an emotional hijacking. And today, we are cracking open the playbook of the people who actually engineer that hijack.
It really is a deliberate, highly engineered trick being played on your brain, and honestly, maybe one of the most effective illusions human beings have ever managed to pull off.
Right. We are deconstructing that invisible magic today. Our deep dive is focused on this legendary manual in the industry. It's called the Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams. And even if you don't know his name, you have definitely seen his work. I mean, he was the director of animation for Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
A total masterpiece.
Exactly. The mission for our deep dive today is to really explore how artists breathe life, emotion, and heavy physical weight into entirely static images. And we'll uncover why, paradoxically, mastering the absolute strictest, most rigid rules of a craft is actually the only true way to achieve total creative freedom.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the burning desire to capture motion isn't some modern invention that just started with Walt Disney.
Oh, not by a long shot, no. The human urge to put drawings in time, as Williams calls it, is eons older than film or television or even the whole concept of a theater. We can actually trace this impulse back, like 35,000 years, to the deep, dark caves of early humanity.
Wait, 35,000 years?
Yeah, it's incredible. There is this prehistoric painting of a wild boar, but it's drawn with 8 legs. So it's 4 pairs of legs layered right over each other in sequence. The artist was specifically trying to convey this chaotic flurry of motion.
And if you imagine viewing that painting by the flickering, dancing light of a cave fire, those layered legs would actually appear to shift and move. It was essentially an environmental installation meant to simulate life.
I just love that. The idea of cavemen trying to animate a hunt, right? And that instinct obviously only grew more sophisticated. Thousands of years later, around 1600 BC, the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II built this massive temple with 110 towering stone columns. And on each column, a painted figure of the goddess Isis was placed in a progressively changed physical position.
Which, I mean, is a staggering feat of engineering when you think about it. Because if you were a horseman or a charioteer riding past those columns at a steady speed, the goddess Isis would actually appear to stride right alongside you.
That's so cool.
Right. It was basically the world's first flip book, but on a massive architectural scale, calculated specifically for the speed of a galloping horse.
That ancient architectural trick actually exploits a very specific biological glitch in our own heads, doesn't it? The exact same glitch that makes every modern movie possible.
Yes, that's the key to all of this. It wasn't until 1824 that a man named Peter Marc Roget formally documented this vital principle, which he called the persistence of vision.
Okay, persistence of vision.
Right. It's a quirk of our optical processing. So our eyes temporarily retain an image of anything we've just seen for a tiny fraction of a second. If you present the eye with a sequence of static pictures fast enough, the brain simply refuses to see the empty black space between them.
It just edits it out.
Exactly. It actively smooths them out. It bridges the gaps to create the illusion of an unbroken connection. Without your brain doing all that heavy lifting, you wouldn't have movies. People often forget that movies don't actually move. You're literally just sitting in the dark watching a rapid-fire slideshow of still photographs.
Which is exactly the mechanic behind those little flip books we all used to make in the margins of our math textbooks. You know, you draw a stick figure, slightly bend the knee on the next page, bend it a little more on the next, and then let your thumb do the work.
Yep, same exact principle.
It's the same 19th century optical trickery used in those old parlor toys like the thaumatrope, the spinning cardboard disc with a bird on one side and a cage on the other. Spin it fast, and your brain puts the bird in the cage. But, I mean, there is a massive evolutionary leap between a spinning cardboard disc and a character that actually makes you cry.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
That leap is the shift from a simple optical illusion to high art. It's the shift to, well, personality. Winsor McCay really pioneered this frontier back in 1914 with a short film called Gertie the Dinosaur.
Right,
He
Gertie.
didn't just make a dinosaur walk across a screen. Gertie breathed heavily. She swallowed whole pumpkins. She threw tantrums. She actually seemed to think before she acted.
Mhm.
It was the first time an audience felt they could genuinely identify with the internal emotional state of a drawing.
That's huge.
And then Disney took that structural knowledge to an entirely new stratosphere later with Snow White and the Jungle Book. They achieved a level of believability that honestly still holds up today.
But merely making something move across a screen is ultimately just a parlor trick. Making an audience believe that drawing has a soul, a history, and physical weight. I mean, how does an artist actually learn to do that? Because Richard Williams' own personal story is a perfect case study in this, mainly because he had to learn it the hard way.
You really did?
He was this highly successful independent animator in London, running his own commercial studio, winning over 100 international awards. By all accounts, he thought he was a revolutionary genius who just had it all figured out.
Until he saw a re-release of Disney's The Jungle Book. That film completely shattered his ego.
Yeah, he went to the theater reluctantly, fully expecting it to be predictable and quaint. But then the tiger character, Shere Khan, stepped onto the screen. Williams said he just sat there in absolute shock. He realized he was looking at the sheer mass of an 800-pound tiger, combined with the subtle facial acting of the voice actor at the exact same time.
Yeah.
The sliding weight of the shoulders, the terrifying articulation of the paws. Williams went back to his studio and realized he actually didn't know the first thing about how to move objects properly.
What's fascinating here is how Williams reframed his entire worldview after that moment. He realized he was just doing a lot of trendy, stylistic drawings, but he was completely missing the heavy foundational mechanics.
So he went back to school, basically.
Better than school. Rather than doubling down on his own style, he spent his later years tracking down the surviving legendary Golden Age animators, masters like Ken Harris, Milt Kahl, and Art Babbitt.
He practically apprenticed himself, right?
Exactly. He hired these older men to come to his studio so he could literally stand under them and absorb decades of their trial and error.
Which perfectly mirrors that old parable about the decrepit Zen master wrestler, the story where the arrogance of youth collides with the mastery of the fundamentals.
Oh, it's a brilliant metaphor for mastering any craft. So the story goes that a very fit, incredibly talented young wrestler begs an old, physically decrepit Zen master to teach him the master's legendary 99 tricks.
And the master says no at first, right?
Right, he refuses, knowing the danger of ego. But the young man pesters him endlessly, swearing he will never use the knowledge against his teacher. So the master relents. The young man learns all 99 tricks, becomes wildly famous, and inevitably his ego swells.
As it always does.
Yep. He locks the old master in a room and challenges him to a fight to prove who is supreme.
And the second the fight begins, the old man effortlessly grabs the young, powerful wrestler and just hurls him right out the window.
Just tosses him.
Right. The young man is left crumpled on the street below, groaning, "You didn't show me that one!" And the old man looks down from the window and simply says, "That was number 100.
The 100th trick is talent. It's intuition. Williams uses this story to explain that his survival kit manual contains the 99 tricks, the mechanics, the physics, the formulas of movement. But you cannot just read them.
You have to embody them.
You have to physically drill those 99 tricks into your bloodstream. You have to practice the rigid rules until they become pure second nature. Only when you don't have to consciously think about the rules anymore can your mind be entirely free to give a true, spontaneous performance. That freedom is the 100th trick.
Okay, I have to push back on this on behalf of anyone listening who works in a creative field, writers, designers, musicians. There's a very pervasive belief out there that focusing obsessively on strict rules, structural mechanics, and old formulas actually stifles creativity.
Yeah.
Doesn't rigidly following the old ways prevent an artist from developing their own unique personal style?
It's a completely understandable fear, but Williams and the masters he studied argue the exact opposite. A lack of structural knowledge is precisely what traps you in a formula. Well, if you don't understand the underlying reality of what you're creating, you end up just copying a stylistic surface over and over until you burn out.
And the danger of that trap is exactly why the poet Robert Graves wrote his famous Epitaph of an Unfortunate Artist. Williams actually kept this pinned to his notice board during the intense production of Roger Rabbit. The poem goes, he found a formula for drawing comic rabbits. This formula for drawing comic rabbits paid, so in the end he could not change the tragic habits. This formula for drawing comic rabbits made.
It's a chilling warning, honestly. If you only learn the shortcut, you become a prisoner to the shortcut.
Right.
The antidote to becoming that unfortunate artist, according to these animation masters, is a relentless, punishing grounding in reality. Specifically, life drawing. Milt Kahl, who was arguably one of the most brilliant draftsmen at the Disney studio, had a very firm philosophy on this. He believed it was impossible to be a top-notch animator without first being an exceptional draftsman of the actual human figure.
But why the human figure? I mean, if your day job is drawing a cartoon mouse with giant shoes or a goofy, exaggerated dog, why do you need to spend hours drawing realistic human collarbones and knees?
Because you need to know the figure intimately so you can intelligently concentrate on the differences.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Milt Kahl explained that to draw a convincing caricature, to stretch and squash a character believably, you first have to understand the underlying masses, the joints, the way gravity pulls on bone and muscle.
You're not just chasing life.
Exactly. You aren't copying the surface of the world like a camera. You are internalizing how physics actually function. You must understand reality deeply in order to depart from it believably.
That makes perfect sense for someone holding a pencil. But let's bring this into the modern era. Today's 3D computer animators aren't drawing frame by frame on a glowing light box.
No, they aren't.
The character model, the digital maquette, is already perfectly built inside the software. The computer calculates the light, the gravity, the collisions. So do digital artists still need to know how to draw and understand all this anatomical reality?
Williams had a deeply frustrating encounter that directly addresses that illusion. He was invited to speak at a highly funded, state-of-the-art school for computer animation students.
Oh boy.
Yeah. These students were working on incredibly expensive supercomputers that could render anything perfectly. But when Williams reviewed their actual animation, none of them seemed to have any foundational drawing skills.
And he pointed this out.
He tried to. When he tried to stress the importance of understanding weight and anatomy, a laid-back professor interrupted him and said, "What do you mean? All of us here draw very well. The computer does it for us."
Oh, wow. He didn't even realize what he was missing.
Williams was speechless. He realized in that moment that computer animation, without a foundational knowledge of drawing, anatomy, and physical weight, is just puppetry.
Just moving rigs around.
You are just pulling the digital strings of a high-tech marionette. Motion capture might give you realistic movement, but animation isn't about realistic movement. It's about caricatured, expressive movement. Whether you are using a 2B pencil or a massive render farm, you still face the exact same artistic problem.
Which is how to convey empathy, intention, and weight.
Exactly. The technology does not solve the foundation.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if the foundation is understanding reality, how does an animator actually translate that onto a blank page? What is the core equation of movement? And it turns out applying this requires an almost monastic, painful level of focus.
Oh, absolutely. Animation is, above all else, an exercise in intense concentration.
Williams tells this hilarious story about visiting Milt Kahl at his desk. Williams innocently asked him, "Milt, do you ever listen to classical music while you're working?"
And Kahl's reaction is legendary.
He just completely explodes. He screams, "Of all the stupid questions I've ever heard, I'm not smart enough to think of more than one thing at a time."
It paints a funny picture, but the underlying lesson is incredibly profound. True animation requires complete sensory deprivation.
You shut everything out.
You have to unplug your headphones, turn off the radio, put away your phone, and sit in absolute silence to visualize the mechanics of the movement before your pencil even touches the paper. And those mechanics always boil down to two fundamental, unbreakable pillars: timing and spacing.
Timing and spacing. If you take nothing else away from this, remember those two words. If we imagine animation as a piece of music, timing is the ticking metronome.
Right.
It's the rhythm. It dictates exactly when things happen, the beats, the hits, the sharp boinks of a bouncing ball impacting the concrete.
And if timing is the unyielding metronome, spacing is the swing, the groove, the emotional delivery of those notes.
You like that?
Spacing is determining how close or how far apart the drawings are from one another in the gaps between those metronome beats. The personality of the character entirely lives in the spacing.
You can actually prove this yourself at home using nothing but a coin and a smartphone camera. You don't even need drawing skills.
The famous coin test.
Yes.
Imagine placing a quarter under a camera. You want to slide it across a table from the left edge of the frame to the right edge. You decide the action needs to take exactly 1 second. In standard film time, 1 second is 24 frames. So you have 24 distinct positions.
That's your timing.
Exactly. It is locked in stone. 1 second.
Timing is set. 24 clicks.
Now, if you take that quarter and you space those 24 positions perfectly evenly, moving at the exact same quarter-inch distance for every single frame, the result is visually dead.
It looks like a mechanical robot arm is sliding the coin.
It has no soul. Now keep the exact same timing. It still takes exactly 1 second, 4 frames to cross the screen, but this time, manipulate the spacing.
Okay, so change the gaps.
All right. Cluster the first few frames very tightly together at the beginning, moving the coin only a microscopic fraction of a millimeter. Then spread the frames wide in the middle so the coin travels huge distances per frame. Then cluster the frames tightly again as it approaches the finish line.
And in the industry, this is called easing out of the start position and easing in to the end position.
You got it. And the transformation is magical.
Suddenly, without changing the object itself and without changing the total time it takes to cross the screen, the coin has friction.
Yes.
It has mass, it looks like it has to exert heavy physical effort to overcome inertia, and then it gains a rushing momentum that it struggles to slow down. The coin gains an entire personality just from the manipulation of the gaps between the frames.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this proves a terrifying reality for visual artists. In animation, the timing and the spacing will always aggressively dominate the sheer artistic quality of the drawing itself.
Ellie, always.
Always. You could have a sequence of 24 perfectly rendered, museum-quality masterpieces drawn by Leonardo da Vinci, but if the spacing is perfectly even, it will look terrible and lifeless when it moves.
That is wild.
Conversely, you can animate a crude, simple stick figure, and if the timing and spacing are brilliantly designed, that stick figure will feel completely alive.
But practically speaking, how does an animator map out that complex spacing on a blank sheet of paper? I mean, they don't just guess and hope it lines up. They use a very specific charting system.
Yeah, they break the movement down into a hierarchy of 3 categories: extremes, breakdowns, and in-betweens. The extremes are exactly what they sound like: the absolute main starting position and the main ending position of an action.
Let's use a pendulum as an example.
Perfect.
So extreme 1 is the heavy pendulum pulled high up to the left, holding still for a split second. Extreme 2 is the pendulum swung all the way high up to the right.
But you can't just draw the middle frame halfway between them in a straight line.
Right, because the arm of the pendulum is rigid, so it swings in a downward arc.
Exactly. That crucial middle position, the very bottom of the swing where the direction shifts, is called the breakdown, or the passing position. It dictates the physical path and the physics of the action.
Okay, that makes sense.
Think about pushing a child on a swing. There is a moment at the very top of the arc where they are completely weightless before gravity violently yanks them back down. The physics is defined in the breakdown.
So once you lock in the extremes and the breakdown, what's left?
Everything else is just an in-between. The filler drawings that smooth out the timing.
And if you don't respect the physics of that breakdown, the illusion falls apart instantly. You see this when lazy or, hack animators try to duck the hard work.
A hack might draw frame 1 on the far left of the screen and frame 96 on the far right of the screen. 2 beautiful extremes.
Right.
But then they just hand it to an overworked assistant and say, okay, just put 94 evenly spaced in-betweens in there.
Which guarantees that lifeless, floating robotic movement. But it gets even worse when the communication between the lead animator and the assistant breaks down regarding the actual physical design of the character within those in-betweens.
Oh, yeah.
There is this brilliant cautionary tale about a commercial for a British orange drink called Kia Ora.
This is a classic example of how fragile the illusion really is.
Yeah.
Williams was working on a commercial featuring a little girl character named Aurora. He drew the master extreme frames, so drawings 1, 3, and 5.
Okay.
And because he deeply understood the character's unique design, he drew her with these highly stylized, tall, egg-shaped eyes.
He put the soul into the extreme.
He did. But he handed the scene off to an inexperienced assistant whose job was just to draw the in-betweens frames 2 and 4. And this assistant, secretly fancying himself a character designer, strongly disliked the egg-shaped eyes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he preferred standard, perfectly circular eyes. So doing the geometric math in his head, the assistant drew perfectly circular eyes on frames 2 and 4, genuinely thinking he was improving the design.
So the final sequence goes frame 1, egg eyes, frame 2, circle eyes, frame 3, egg eyes, frame 4, circle eyes.
This raises an important question about the limits of what the human brain will actually tolerate. Because when they put that sequence on the projector and played it back at 24 frames a second, you can imagine what happened.
The character's eyes went wobble, 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 just rapidly vibrating on the screen. It must have looked like a horrifying glitch.
It violently destroys the believability. It yanks the audience right out of the emotional experience.
I bet.
As Grim Natwick, one of the oldest and greatest animators from the Golden Age, used to warn, Bad in-betweens will kill the finest animation.
So true.
You can have a breathtaking extreme pose, but if the frames connecting them are off-model or incorrectly spaced, the magic vanishes. Your brain actively rejects the illusion.
So what does this all mean? I mean, for you listening to this deep dive, even if you never plan to pick up an animation pencil or open 3D rendering software in your life, the core takeaway here transcends animation.
It really does.
Whether you are a writer struggling to structure a messy novel, a coder trying to build an elegant app, or a manager trying to lead a sprawling team, there is simply no shortcut past the fundamentals.
There really isn't. You cannot fake the 100th trick.
You can't just skip ahead to the cool, stylized, creative part of your job without deeply understanding the heavy underlying mechanics first. True creative freedom, the ability to improvise, to confidently break the rules, to truly express your unique voice, that only comes after you have done the grueling, unglamorous work.
Exactly.
You have to master the timing, the spacing, the foundational anatomy of your specific craft until it sinks into your bloodstream and becomes pure, unthinking instinct.
And I'll leave you with a final thought to ponder, building on everything we've explored today.
Okay, let's hear it.
If animation is fundamentally just the clever manipulation of time and gaps, tricking the human mind by carefully designing the empty spaces between static images, it forces us to ask a much larger, slightly unsettling question about ourselves.
I'm intrigued.
How much of our own daily perception of reality is just our brain seamlessly in-betweening the gaps between isolated moments of focus? The next time you watch a film, or honestly even just watch a friend walk across a room, ask yourself, are you actually seeing a continuous, unbroken reality? Or are you just beautifully willingly falling for the oldest optical illusion in human history?